out finally as a legislation. And like what I talked about, our challenge of implementation. Our challenge has been when you have worked, you have brought in experts, you have listened to so many views, you have come up with a proposal, and nobody at the end of the day knows that this is what you have done. You see, you don't have that fulfillment of doing anything worthwhile. But when you worked and you are able to see the product of what you have done come on board, it makes you happy. Yes, and that has been the product of our relationship with the National Assembly.
Now let's come to the issue of constitutional reforms. Now I know that as a Federal Commissioner of the Law Reform Commission, you've pledged to work with the National Assembly to see how we can reform the Nigerian Constitution. Obviously that is one issue that has taken the front burner for several years now. But what's been your major contribution to this issue?
You see, if you look at the law establishing the commission, statutorily, the reform or amendment of the Constitution is not our mandate. But whenever the National Assembly seek for our opinion on that subject, we are ever willing to contribute. I know when the first and second amendment were made, our opinion was sought, and we made available our contribution. The present proposal that is going on, whenever our opinion is sought, we are willing to give our opinion on it.
So at this juncture, would you totally demand for a brand new constitution?
You see, because the society is dynamic, it keeps changing. If you look at the US Constitution, which is the oldest constitution, it has undergone several amendments. There's no time the US have ever said, we want a new brand constitution. It has gone through all the amendments, and I think that has been the tradition. That instead of you thinking of getting a new brand document, amend what you have to give you what you want. Because what you want today is not what you want tomorrow. So if you now say today you want a brand new, it will mean tomorrow you will also need a brand new. And that will mean you keep having new brand news.
Now the reason why I ask is that, you know, Nigeria is a very multi-ethnic society, several interest groups, several communities. Everybody wants to have their voices heard, you know, in one way or the other in the Constitution. And perhaps that's the reason why many of us are clamoring for a brand new Constitution, if you might put it that way. You know, that will have the input of everyone, not a single community exempted from this.
That's true. You see, as a law reformer, what I've discovered is it is always easier to work on something you have than to start something new. That is to say, with what we have, we can now amend it to give us what we want. And like I said, because society keeps changing, the demands of the society keeps changing. What is the demand of one community today? If you meet it tomorrow, you will have a different demand. It is just like you as a human being. Today, this is your need. You want a suit. By the time you have a suit, tomorrow you will say, well, this tie is old enough. And the next day you discover the shirt is not good enough for that day. So in lawmaking, it is better, and in particular in constitution, it is better what you have, you amend it to give you what you want. And when next the need to amend any other section arises, you amend it further. It is better that way than to keep thinking of having a new document altogether.
Right, now let's take a quick pause now for a break, and when we come back we shall continue with our discussion. It's Mr. Kefas Musa Magaji, the Federal Commissioner of the Nigerian Law Reform Commission. We'll be right back. Stay with us. You're welcome back. It's still question time on Channels Television. Mr. Kefas Musa Magaji is still here with us, our guest for this week, taking a look at the Nigerian Law Reform Commission. We've said quite a lot in our first break. Now, let's even move away from the issue of constitution, you know, and the commission and all whatnot. Let's come to more pressing issues as it affects the agency, and that has to do with violent crimes. Now, we've been hearing the talk of the death penalty, you know, from several quarters, particularly in some states, advocating that perhaps we should have the death penalty for violent crime offenders. But what would you say to that? What's your view?
Yes. You see, as a commission, we've not really taken a position on whether we should still have death penalty in our law books, or we shouldn't have death penalty in our law books. But as a person, I still believe that we are not ripe to remove death penalty from our law books. The reason is simple. Well, others have argued that it is not how many that are killed for these offenses that can stop the commission of such crimes. But I believe too that, you see, the severity of the sentence has some psychological effect on the offenders. You see, each time you are going to commit an offense, and you know that when you kill, you will also be killed, it has a way of affecting you psychologically. You have to sit down and be sure of what you are doing and whether it is worth doing it. And so I still believe that Nigeria is not ripe enough to remove death sentence or death sentence from our statute books. That is my personal opinion. But like I said, as a commission, we have not really discussed that yet. That has not been an issue before us.
Now, there have also been clamors from several quarters that we should have the stiffer penalty, or more penalties for sexual offenders, rape offenders. Do you agree with this?
So like I said, the challenge we have is in law reform, if we now we're trying to see how we can now review some of these sentences so that these punishments will actually serve as deterrents, which they are intended to serve. But whatever legislations you make at this end, whatever proposal you make at this end, it is now left to the states to see whether they want to adopt it or they don't adopt it. So what constitutes rape in FCT? Another state might think otherwise about it. Like in law reform, we have tried to now reform what is rape. We've come up with a new definition of rape in the light of some of those sexual offenses that were not part of us, but are part of us today. But like I said, that is still a proposal. It has not been passed yet, but it is on its way to the National Assembly. But you see, even if that law is passed, it is for the states that want to adopt it that can now adopt it. Otherwise, what is rape under the old legislation might remain the position in those states. The punishment prescribed in the laws, in those old laws, remain the punishments for the offense in those states unless the new position is adopted.
Now, do you think that the refusal of some states to reform their laws are born out of perhaps the desire to keep things the way they are, and not wanting to tamper with anything so that their interests are not affected?
It is a function of who is at the head in that particular state, what is his focus, what is his vision. States, like I said, if you look at the Child Rights Act, states like Jigawa, they have adopted it. But there are so many other states in the north that have not. So the whole thing is a question of who is at the helm of affairs in that state, what is his focus. Is law making, is law reform one of his priorities?
But don't you think this has a great danger for our society, in the long run especially?
Well, that is also the price for the federal structure we are operating, because whatever we want, it has its own side problems. Now, we are a federal state, and the federal government cannot impose what it thinks it is right on the states. The states, they have their own, because you see, each state has its own House of Assembly.